This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Thursday, June 13th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Merrick Garland is now the third Attorney General in U.S. history held in contempt of Congress. I'm Pamela Furr.
Antony Blinken says Hamas wants numerous changes to a U.S.-backed Gaza ceasefire plan. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
3 sheriff's deputies shot by a suspect in Illinois.
Our deputies received fire from inside the house.
I'm Clayton Neville.
The annual rainy season has arrived in much of Florida. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Stocks are coming off a record-setting day as inflation came in cooler than expected and the Fed holds interest rates steady. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Advisors at the Food and Drug Administration are backing a closely watched Alzheimer's drug. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Experts believe they found the wreckage of a long-lost jet that disappeared in 1971. I'm Norman Hall.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Resolution passed in the House, making Merrick Garland the third ever Attorney General to be held in contempt. Pamela Furr has the story.
Garland has refused to hand over audio recordings of President Biden's interview with the special counsel regarding the classified documents investigation. Now, you may recall special counsel Robert Hur concluded no criminal charges were warranted, saying the 81-year-old president presented himself as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. The transcripts have been made public, but before the vote, Republican James Comer of Kentucky explained why he feels the tapes need to be released.
This is not just Republicans who need these recordings for their oversight duties. Media outlets, including the AP, CBS, CNN, NBC, and the Washington Post, among others, have filed suit to get these same audio recordings as well.
Republicans have also argued it would provide critical context about Biden's state of mind. That's not all, Comer says.
The House of Representatives cannot serve as a necessary check on the presidency if the executive branch is free to ignore the House's subpoenas.
Democrat Jamie Raskin is accusing the GOP of wanting the tapes for other reasons.
They literally don't even know what they're looking for anymore. So why do they want it? Well, they're hoping that in the 5 hours of President Biden's testimony, they can find a mispronounced word or phrase or a brief stammer, which they can then turn into an embarrassing political TV attack ad.
On this vote, the yeas are 208, the nays are 207. The resolution is adopted.
The Justice Department released a statement from Attorney General Garland after the vote, saying today's vote disregards the constitutional separation of powers, the Justice Department's need to protect its investigations, and the substantial amount of information we have provided to the committees. Now, the last time an Attorney General was held in contempt, it was in 2019. That's when the Democratically controlled House voted to make then Attorney General Bill Barr the second sitting cabinet member to be held in contempt of Congress. Years before that, during the administration of President Barack Obama, then Attorney General Eric Holder was held in contempt related to the gun-running operation known as Operation Fast and Furious. In each of those instances, the Justice Department took no action against the Attorney General. I'm Pamela Furr.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken has told Hamas that it's time for haggling to stop after the terror group proposed numerous changes to a U.S.-led peace plan for Gaza. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports what Hamas is demanding will likely not sit well with the Israeli leadership.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Hamas wants numerous changes to a U.S.-backed Gaza ceasefire plan. Blinken is not saying what they are, but
some of the changes are workable, some are not.
The secretary's in gutter, pushing a plan that has global support.
We're determined to try to bridge the gaps. And I believe those gaps are bridgeable. Doesn't mean they will be bridged, because, again, it ultimately depends on people saying yes.
Hamas says it offered a response.
We're in receipt of this reply that Hamas delivered to Qatar and to Egypt and we are evaluating it right now.
White House National Security spokesman John Kirby gave no details after Hamas appeared to stop short of outright accepting the deal, saying it wants some amendments. Hamas officials are wary about whether Israel will fulfill its end of the agreement, including eventually ending the fighting and fully withdrawing from Gaza in return for all the hostages Hamas now holds. The U.S. and fellow mediators will keep working
to try to close this deal,
saying while there are gaps between the parties,
I believe those gaps are bridgeable. Doesn't mean they will be bridged. We are going to continue to push on an urgent basis with our partners, with Qatar, with Egypt, to try to close this deal, because we know it's in the interests of Israelis, Palestinians, the region, indeed, the entire world.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Sheriff's deputies shot in Illinois, flooding in Florida. An update on those stories when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back, and thanks for listening. You're with America in the Morning. Heavy flooding continues in Florida. There are areas of Naples, Everglades City, Fort Lauderdale experiencing heavy downpours and continued flooding at this hour. We'll have a full report on what's expected for later today in the region coming up. First, let's get the forecast. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Adam Sadberry.
Heavy rain from a tropical rainstorm has drenched much of southern and central Florida since Tuesday. Some areas in southern portions of the state have recorded nearly 1.5 feet of rain in just a 24-hour period, creating a once-in-a-century flooding event. Drenching downpours continue today through the end of the week. However, relief is finally expected by this weekend. Elsewhere, a cold front sweeping through the Midwest and Great Lakes region will ignite another round of thunderstorms, some capable of being severe this afternoon and evening. Areas from southern Michigan to the Central Plains may experience downpours, hail, damaging winds, and even an isolated tornado. In the west, hotter than normal conditions will continue from southern Idaho through the Great Basin and central Rockies to the southern high plains in western Texas. Coastal areas, including much of California, can expect cooler and more seasonal conditions to return today, however. For the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, slightly warmer but otherwise comfortable conditions can be expected. That's the weather across America. In Salt Lake City, Utah, it will be very hot with blazing sunshine, the high 102. In Raleigh, North Carolina, mostly sunny and seasonably warm, the high near 90. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Adam Sadberry.
Remember, follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. 3 sheriff's deputies in Illinois are recovering after being shot inside a gated community while responding to a 911 call. Correspondent Clayton Neville has details.
The shooting happened after authorities in Ogle County, Illinois, outside Rockford, were called to the Lost Lakes gated neighborhood near Dixon for reports of someone threatening to kill themselves and others.
Our hostage negotiators arrived on scene and attempted to make contact, and the first call to his cell phone began at 10:40. In excess of 50 phone calls were made in various forms to the residents, with no answer.
Ogle County Sheriff Brian Van Vickle said officers eventually made their way inside the home.
Immediately upon entering the house, our deputies received fire from inside the house.
3 officers were shot, and so was the suspect. All 4 expected to be okay. 2 of the officers who were taken to the hospital were treated and released. Illinois State Police now investigating the shooting.
We've requested the state police conduct the investigation into the officer-involved shooting, and they will be handling the investigation from this point on, and any questions regarding the information should be directed to the Illinois State Police.
I'm Clayton Neville.
State of emergency in South Florida due to severe storms and flooding at a time when hurricane season is arriving. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
A disorganized disturbance of tropical weather from the Gulf of Mexico has caused street flooding and triggered tornado watches, but so far has not caused any major damage or injuries. Luke Culver with the National Weather Service says Floridians can expect this to continue through the rest of the week.
Through this evening, we're expecting continued rainfall. We might get kind of a lull overnight, but tomorrow and Friday, we're looking at the potential for continued rounds of showers and thunderstorms as the tropical air mass stays over the area.
Experts estimate there's an 85% chance that the Atlantic hurricane season will be above average, predicting between 17 and 25 named storms in the coming months, including up to 13 hurricanes and 4 major hurricanes. An average season has 14 named storms. I'm Haya Panjwani.
U.S. oil production outpaces demand. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. The Business Report is sponsored by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments takes a disciplined approach with investing, helping clients navigate volatile markets. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a cooler inflation report for May. The Fed held interest rates steady and records were set. The S&P 500 index and the NASDAQ, they each opened this morning at fresh record highs. The S&P opens above 5,400 for the very first time. The Fed not only left interest rates right where they are, it signaled that one interest rate cut may be coming this year. Some investors are fine with that.
Stability and a Fed on hold. This is great for technology. It's great for companies that are growing. And it really does, I think, give the market some reason to continue to love what it's loved since that payroll number, which says the job market's balancing, but it's not falling apart.
Seymour Asset Management's Tim Seymour on CNBC. Inflation better than expected in May. The CPI Consumer Price Index had a 3.3% rate of inflation. Consumer price increases continuing to ease.
The internals on this, whether it's gas prices, core goods, insurance.
Oh, my insurance finally broke. You know, you drive your car to work and gasoline is front and center, and property casualty, but also auto. Now, I thought the most interesting one was on page 17. All items less shelter, minus 0.2. There you go. So shelter sticky and everything else is coming down.
CNBC Mad Money host Jim Cramer with CNBC's Carl Quintanilla. Walmart has launched its store brand of makeup called Pretty Smart with affordable prices. Everything's $10 or less. Retail Dive says it's exclusively in 2,800 Walmart stores and online. Sony Pictures buying Alamo Drafthouse, becoming the first movie studio in 75 years to own a theater chain.
What's this about too much oil on the market and gas prices so high?
Big Oil got a big warning from the International Energy Administration. The world will be producing more oil than it needs in just 6 years, leading to too much capacity sitting around.
A U.S.-led surge in global oil production is expected to outstrip demand growth by the end of the decade. It says that will push spare capacity to unprecedented levels and potentially upend OPEC's market management. The IEA issuing a warning to big oil companies, urging them to make sure that their business strategies are prepared for a supply surplus. The big oil companies that I think they have been diversifying to some extent already.
CNBC's Becky Quick. On today's watch list, it's busy. We get the latest on inflation at the wholesale level. That's the PPI, the Producer Price Index. Tesla shareholders, a very closely watched vote today on the $56 billion pay package for Elon Musk. Earnings are coming from RH, the former Restoration Hardware, and Adobe. We find out how many people applied for unemployment benefits last week.
A closely watched number, CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, curing Alzheimer's, hope on the horizon. After these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. There's renewed hope for people with Alzheimer's thanks to a new drug which the FDA is considering for approval. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports.
The drug is donanemab from Eli Lilly, and the FDA advisors say its ability to slow Alzheimer's outweighs its risks, including side effects like brain swelling and bleeding that will have to be monitored. One panel member thought the evidence in the trial in people with mild dementia was very strong. The slowdown in Alzheimer's seen in the tests amounts to several months. Experts disagree on whether patients or their loved ones will be able to detect the difference. A final decision by the FDA is expected later this month. If approved, donanemab would be the second Alzheimer's drug cleared for use. The other is Leqembi from a Japanese drug maker. Ed Donahue, Washington.
It vanished in 1971, and after decades of searches and theories as to what happened, a mystery that's baffled many in the Northeast for more than 50 years has come to an end with the discovery of a long-missing jet. Correspondent Norman Hall reports.
Experts believe they found the wreckage of a long-lost jet with 5 people aboard that disappeared on a snowy night in Vermont's Lake Champlain in 1971. The corporate jet departed Burlington Airport for Providence, Rhode Island. Initial searches for the 10-seater turned up no wreckage. At least 17 other searches were conducted before a remotely operated vehicle using sonar found wreckage last month. Relatives say the discovery opens up more questions and old wounds. Frank Wilder's father was aboard.
Spending 53 years not knowing if the plane was in the lake or maybe on a mountainside around there somewhere was distressing.
Relatives plan to hold a memorial. I'm Norman Hall.
America in the Morning for Thursday, June 13th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Production assistants, Christian Matos. Our senior producer, Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Donald Trump set to meet with Republican leaders on Capitol Hill. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Don't look for more than 1 cut to the Federal Reserve's benchmark interest rate. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Taking on controversial issues at the Southern Baptist Convention annual meeting. I'm Clayton Neville.
Swayed voters after the Hunter Biden guilty verdict.
President Biden jets to Italy for a G7 summit. Jennifer King, Washington.
Tech gadgets for Dad delivered in time for Father's Day. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
The U.S. keeping an eye on Russian ships in waters south of Florida.
Russell Crowe sounds off about the upcoming sequel to Gladiator. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. Yes, hurricane season is underway, and although not a hurricane, areas of South Florida will continue to receive heavy flooding today. We have some flood watches and warnings out today for areas around Naples, Everglades City, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami. With an update on what's happening there and the forecast around the nation, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Adam Sadberry.
Heavy rain from a tropical rainstorm has drenched much of southern and central Florida since Tuesday. Some areas in southern portions of the state have recorded nearly 1.5 feet of rain in just a 24-hour period, creating a once-in-a-century flooding event. Drenching downpours continue today through the end of the week. However, relief is finally expected by this weekend. Elsewhere, a cold front sweeping through the Midwest and Great Lakes region will ignite another round of thunderstorms, some capable of being severe this afternoon and evening. Areas from southern Michigan to the Central Plains may experience downpours, hail, damaging winds, and even an isolated tornado. In the west, hotter than normal conditions will continue from southern Idaho through the Great Basin and central Rockies to the southern high plains in western Texas. Coastal areas, including much of California, can expect cooler and more seasonal conditions to return today, however. For the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, slightly warmer but otherwise comfortable conditions can be expected. That's the weather across America. In Salt Lake City, Utah, it will be very hot with blazing sunshine, the high 102. In Raleigh, North Carolina, mostly sunny and seasonably warm, the high near 90. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Adam Sadberry.
Remember, follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Former President Trump will be on Capitol Hill today for a strategy session with congressional Republican leaders. John Stolnis has a preview from Washington.
The presumptive Republican nominee will meet separately with House and Senate Republicans in an attempt to unify the party and develop a legislative plan of attack should Trump win a second term. House Speaker Mike Johnson says it's a great opportunity to get on the same page.
November cannot get here soon enough, but we're anxious to talk about that and I guess bounce around ideas with the president.
This will be the first time Trump has visited Capitol Hill since the January 6th attack on the Capitol in 2021. Johnson was asked if he has spoken to Trump about committing to a peaceful transfer of power in the future.
Of course he respects that, and we all do, and we've all talked about it ad nauseum. We're excited to welcome President Trump back.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has clashed with Trump over January 6th, funding for Ukraine, and personal attacks Trump has made against his wife, former Trump Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao.
You know, I said 3 years ago, right after the Capitol was attacked, that I would support our nominee, regardless of who it was, including him. I've said earlier this year, I support him. He's earned the nomination by the voters all across the country. And of course, I'll be at the meeting.
Only one of 4 GOP senators to vote to impeach Trump after January 6th will attend the meeting. That's Senator Bill Cassidy. And with only 2 of the 10 GOP House members left to impeach Trump, only Dan Newhouse says he will go. The meetings will aim to create an agenda for Trump's first 100 days in office, something Speaker Johnson believes will be very important to get right.
Said many times, I believe President Trump in his second term, which I believe he'll have, can be the most consequential president of the modern era because we have to fix effectively every area of public policy.
House Democrats, meanwhile, have launched a task force led by Congressman Jared Huffman aimed at countering a conservative policy roadmap called Project 25 that was created by the Heritage Foundation. John Stolnis, Washington.
The Federal Reserve says it's seeing progress in lowering inflation, but not enough. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports the Fed is downgrading the outlook for cutting its benchmark interest rate.
We think ultimately that if you just set policy at a restrictive level, eventually you will see real weakening in the economy. So that's always been the thought, is that, you know, since we raised rates this far, we've always been pointing to cuts at a certain point.
Don't look for more than one cut this year to the Federal Reserve's benchmark interest rate.
What we've been getting is good progress on inflation with growth at a good level and with a strong labor market. Now, ultimately, we think rates will have to come down to continue to support that. But so far, they haven't had to.
The Fed had predicted it would cut the rate from a 2-decade high 3 times this year. Now it expects just 1 cut, while the government reported inflation eased in May for a second straight month.
We welcome today's reading and hope for more like that. The most recent inflation readings have been more favorable than earlier in the year, however, and there has been modest further progress toward our inflation objective. We'll need to see more good data to bolster our confidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward 2%.
Chair Jerome Powell says the Fed needs more.
We've stated that we do not expect it will be appropriate to reduce the target range for the federal funds rate until we have gained greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably toward 2%. So far this year, the data have not given us that greater confidence.
Powell says inflation has eased considerably from its peak 2 years ago, but remains too high, and the central bank has kept rates high to fight it. The economy's kept growing despite that, but
ultimately, we think rates will have to come down to continue to support that. But so far, they haven't had to.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The Southern Baptist Convention has made its stance clear on 2 controversial issues during its annual meeting. Correspondent Clayton Neville has details.
During the annual meeting, Southern Baptists rejected a proposal to officially enshrine a ban on churches with women pastors. A preliminary vote last year favored that ban, which needed a 2/3 majority to pass. It got 61% of the vote this week and essentially failed. There's overwhelming support within the convention, though, to limit the office of pastor to men. But those who voted no this week said it's not necessary to put that ban in the Constitution. The two-day meeting wrapped up yesterday in Indianapolis after a new convention president was elected. Former U.S. President Donald Trump addressed the crowd during the meetings via video message.
These are difficult times for our nation, and your work is so important we can't afford to have anyone sit on the sidelines. Now is the time for us to all pull together and to stand up for our values and for our freedoms. And you just can't vote Democrat. They're against religion. They're against your religion in particular. You cannot vote for Democrats.
Trump on the values of the convention as many looked to a resolution warning against in vitro fertilization that was approved at the meetings. Trump has spoken in support of IVF, but hasn't been outspoken on the issue like some other Republican leaders.
IVF is a medical miracle that has brought the joy of parenthood to millions of families who might otherwise have never experienced it.
Senator Ted Cruz on an issue that he says isn't partisan, and he believes Democrats are painting it to be.
I am a strong supporter of IVF, and I am incredibly grateful for the technology that has enabled parents, moms and dads desperate to bring into the world little boys and little girls to finally hold a child in their arms.
The issue came to the forefront earlier this year when the Alabama Supreme Court said that frozen embryos are children. In the convention's resolution, couples are encouraged to consider the ethical implications of reproductive technologies like IVF. It also denounces medical experimentation on frozen embryos and made clear a priority for the sanctity of human life. I'm Clayton Neville.
Too close for comfort, Russian naval exercises. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. There are questions as to whether Hunter Biden's gun trial and guilty verdict will have an effect on the president's re-election bid. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
No one in this country is above the law. Everyone must be accountable for their actions, even this defendant.
Hunter Biden was convicted of all 3 felony charges related to the purchase of a revolver in 2018. Prosecutors argued the president's son lied on a mandatory gun purchase form by saying he was not illegally using or addicted to drugs.
If the Republican charge that the Justice Department under Joe Biden has been weaponized, then how was it that for a relatively minor offense, the president of the United States' son was brought to a jury trial, found guilty of 3 felonies, and potentially at least faces jail time?
Political analyst with the University of Virginia, Larry Sabato, says this will likely not affect voters as President Joe Biden runs for re-election.
This will be, if not quickly forgotten, put way down on the list of concerns that would produce or change a vote.
I'm Haya Panjwani.
President Biden aims to bolster support for Ukraine as he travels back to Europe, this time for a summit in Italy. Correspondent Jennifer King reports.
Industrialized democracies of the United States, Canada, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan will use the summit to discuss challenges including artificial intelligence, migration, China's economic power, and how to help Ukraine as it fights the Russian war machine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will meet with President Biden. The summit plays out after victories by far-right parties in the just-finished European Union elections. White House and National Security spokesman John Kirby says the U.S. is prepared to work with democratically elected officials in the EU, no matter who they are, although some have expressed less support for Ukraine than current leaders. Other attendees include Pope Francis and the President of Turkey. Jennifer King, Washington.
The U.S. is keeping a watchful eye on Russian naval exercises in the Caribbean. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
The U.S. military expects Russian ships and support vessels which may also stop in Venezuela. Russia's a longtime ally of Venezuela and Cuba, and its warships and aircraft have periodically made forays into the Caribbean. Tensions are growing over Western support for Ukraine. The Russian mission comes less than 2 weeks after President Joe Biden authorized Ukraine to use US-provided weapons to strike inside Russia to protect Kharkiv, Ukraine's second-largest city. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
The home of the director of New York's Brooklyn Museum was defaced allegedly by anti-Israel protesters. Julie Walker has more on the investigation.
Mayor Eric Adams says the home of museum director Ann Pasternak, as well as members of the museum's board, were among the locations hit. He shared photos on X of the front of her home covered in red paint and a large protest banner, and says this is not peaceful protest or free speech. This is a crime. Police are investigating. Palestinian protesters have said the museum is deeply invested in and complicit in the war through its leadership, sponsors, and donors. Julie Walker, New York.
Chuck Palm has some last-minute gift ideas for your gadget dad or techie father-in-law. Here's today's tech report.
Father's Day is this Sunday, so we've compiled a list of tech gadgets that you can still have delivered in time for your techie dad. The Casa Smart Plug can be found at Amazon and can monitor your energy uses and is compatible with Amazon Alexa and your Google Assistant. Next up is the Nest Doorbell, available at Amazon and Best Buy, with 24/7 recording, facial recognition, and reliable smart alerts, but does require tying into your home wiring system. Is your dad sick of the noise? Get him some Google Pixel Buds Pro with an impressive sound, great battery life, and good comfort, all with active noise canceling. Also available at Amazon and Best Buy. Looking for a new iPad for dad? The impressive iPad Air 11 inches with 128 gigabytes of storage is on sale for $569 at Amazon and delivered in time for Prime members. Finally, you can give Dad some of his own screen time with the Roku streaming stick at $34, available at Amazon, Walmart, and Best Buy. I'm Chuck Palm.
Robert Workman's Sports is sponsored by Untuck It. Get your Father's Day gifts at our 80-plus stores or untuckit.com. Untuck It shirts, designed to be worn untucked. Robert?
The Celtics defeated the Mavericks 106-99 last night to take a 3-0 lead in the NBA Finals. The Mavs came out hot in front of the home crowd, taking a 13-point lead in the first quarter before Boston roared back, getting even before halftime and going ahead by as many as 21 in the fourth quarter. Then Dallas rose up with a 22-2 run that got them back within 1 point with less than 4 minutes to play. But Luka Doncic fouled out and Boston held on. Jason Tatum had 31 points.
We're not necessarily saying like one more or anything like that. We just say however long it takes.
The Celtics, undefeated on the road this postseason, go for the sweep in Dallas tomorrow night. Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals is tonight in Edmonton. The Panthers up 2-0 on the Oilers. Baseball, the Yankees scored 6 times in the first inning and cruised past the Royals 11-5. Red Sox put up a 5 spot in the 5th to beat the Phillies 8-6. Brewers scored 5 in the 6th and shaded the Blue Jays 5-4. Orioles won their 6th in a row, downing the Braves. Nationals tamed the Tigers for their 5th straight. That's Washington's longest winning streak in 3 years. Mariners tripped the White Sox in 10, Seattle's league-leading 16th one-run victory this season. Twins pounded out 24 hits and rolled over the Rockies. Cody Bellinger's 3-run blast in the 7th lifted the Cubs over the Rays. 2 homers from Jeimer Candelario gave the Reds a win over the Guardians. Jackson Merrill's second dinger of the day came in the bottom of the 9th as the Padres nipped the A's. Wins for the Rangers, Cardinals, Mets, Giants, and Angels. Golf's U.S. Open begins today at Pinehurst, North Carolina, and Christian Pulisic's goal gave the U.S. men a draw with Brazil in their final tune-up before next week's Copa America. That's Thursday Sports.
Thank you, sir. Upset in the world of competitive eating. We'll explain when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. One of the most iconic players in basketball history has passed away. Correspondent Gethin Coolball reports.
Jerry West is the logo, the NBA logo.
Jerry West, who was selected to the Basketball Hall of Fame 3 times in a storied career as a player and executive, and whose silhouette is considered to be the basis of the NBA logo, died Wednesday morning, the Los Angeles Clippers announced. He was 86.
Never ceases to amaze me the places you can go in this world chasing a basketball.
Nicknamed Mr. Clutch for his late-game exploits as a player, West was a 14-time All-Star with the Lakers and won an NBA championship in 1972. He was a member of the 1960 U.S. men's Olympic team.
The greatest thrill in my life was to win a gold medal, not to win an NBA championship.
West helped craft 8 more championship teams while helping build the Showtime Lakers. I'm Geffen Coolbaugh.
A former gladiator is speaking out about the upcoming sequel of his hit movie. Kevin Carr has details.
One of the most anticipated sequels coming through the Hollywood pipeline is Gladiator 2, which is due in theaters in November. This week, the original Gladiator himself, Russell Crowe, appeared on music journalist Kyle Meredith's podcast and gave his thoughts about the upcoming film.
I'm slightly uncomfortable, the fact that they're making another one, because, of course, I'm dead and I have no say in what gets done.
Gladiator came out in May of 2000 and became an international hit, grossing $460 million worldwide. It went on to win 5 Oscars, including a Best Actor award for Crowe and Best Picture. Crowe has remained balanced about his Oscar win and often defers to the rest of the crew, including director Ridley Scott.
That Academy Award, I think I did say it on the night, I've not given it to the wrong bloke, because Ridley Scott deserves an Academy Award for that film.
More than a decade ago, Scott directed a prequel to his 1979 thriller Alien. In a similar fashion, he is directing this long-awaited Gladiator sequel. However, as much as Crowe feels close to the original movie, he knows he was never meant to be in this film.
But, I can't say anything. It's not my place. I'm 6 foot under.
Gladiator 2 follows Paul Mescal as Lucius Ferris, the nephew of Joaquin Phoenix's original character, Emperor Commodus. Denzel Washington, Pedro Pascal, and Connie Nielsen will also star. Gladiator 2 is due in theaters on November 22nd. I'm Kevin Carr.
A big change coming on the 4th of July at an annual event as the longtime champion is out of the famous Nathan's hot dog eating contest. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports.
He's called Jaws. Joey Chestnut! Chestnut hasn't lost on the 4th of July since 2015. Last year, he downed 62 franks and buns in 10 minutes.
You can't feel really happy unless there's some suffering involved. And eating this many hot dogs, it's not comfortable.
But Major League Eating event organizer George Shea says Chestnut is moving away from the contest due to a contract dispute. He struck a deal with the competing brand. In 2010, Japanese eating champion Takiro Kobayashi, Chestnut's then rival, stopped competing at Nathan's because of a contract dispute with Major League Eating. I'm Ed Donahue.
America in the Morning for Thursday, June 13th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Production assistants Christian Matos. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.